Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today's the day we put the Paramilitary 2 up against the new Para 3. Alright, guys, so what are the big differences between these two knives? And construction-wise, they're very, very, very close. Our major difference between the two of them, barring any measurements, is this stop pin. On the Paramilitary 2, it's a stop pin that's got two torque screws running into either side of it. On the Para 3, it's a stop pin that is just sets inside the liners and the G10. It's just a larger diameter pin in the middle, and it's milled down to a smaller diameter on either end that slides through the liner and the G10. It does come apart. You know, there have been reports that it doesn't, but it does. And mechanically, that is the differences. Not much else. Now, size. Size is the big thing here, but it's not as big as you might guess. Our closed length between the two of them is right about 4.3 for our Para 3 and 4.8, a little over, for our Paramilitary 2. So it's a half an inch, and that's a consistent theme whenever we talk about lengths, except for overall length, of course. And as far as the other parameters, all of them are the same. Same blade stock thickness, same handle thickness. Height is a little odd. The Para 3 is slightly taller at 1.66 to 1.59 for the Paramilitary 2. And, you know, that may just be for aesthetic reasons, and I don't know. But it is a number that is a little bit different. Now, whenever we get these guys open, you will start to see, of course, that length difference. We line them up here fairly decently. The blade's a half inch shorter on the Para 3. The handle is a half an inch shorter on the Para 3, which means that the Paramilitary 2 overall is 1 inch longer, approximately, than the Para 3. Other than that, those are your measurements that count. A slight bit of height difference and a half an inch of length difference whenever the knife's closed and on blade length, and 1 inch of length difference whenever they're open, approximately. Now, the other difference that I did notice, and we'll go back down to our zoomed view here. These two knives have different tip thicknesses by a little bit. Whenever we look at the black blade, which is the Paramilitary 2, it comes down to a finer tip than the Para 3. Now, and that is a function of distal taper. The blade stock thickness is the same, but because the Paramilitary 2 blade is longer, we get a little bit more distal taper out of it than we do with the Para 3. So that means the tip strength on the Para 3 is going to be slightly higher. And that's just a function of how Spyderco grinds the blades on these two knives. You know, I really think that they may be running, well, they probably are since they're coming out of Golden, running them through the same grinders, and probably with a very similar program for those CNC grinders. Another major difference that is actually pretty important, as we'll see in just a moment, is the pocket clip, as you may have heard, is a little lower on the Para 3, and of course it's closer to the end of the knife on the Paramilitary 2. And we'll grab the Levi's and get a look at that. So our Paramilitary 2 goes down in the pocket, and if we put it down in there like we normally would, we get, we'll get the calipers out and just see approximately. We get about 0.82 or so, 0.83. sticking out of the top of the pocket. And this is another one of those, we talked about the mystery of why the ends of knives that stick out of the pocket bang into things. This is another one that, for whatever reason, doesn't really bang into a lot of stuff. And, you know, it's a mystery. I don't know why. Looks like it would. It's almost half an inch thick. It should, but, well, it doesn't. Not very often, anyhow. It may just hold closer to the body. I don't know. Anyhow, to the para 3. We get to the para 3, and you see all that extra knife sticking out. We were about right here, so that's your amount of extra knife. There comes up to approximately just a little over an inch, maybe an inch and a tenth, almost a tenth. So quite a bit extra knife sticking up. Now, I mitigated that problem with this MXG gear clip that I've used on several Spydercos. It's standard Spyderco 3-hole design. And with that clip, the knife stays down in the pocket plenty deep and securely and doesn't run into things. The way it is now, it does run into things and it does have a tendency to lift. I didn't carry this knife a whole lot because of that. It would, didn't bend the pocket clip up, but you'd rub against something and it'd lift it out of the pocket. And that is a function of short knife and a clip that's got quite a bit of lift on the end of it. You know, as we can see there. And the Paramilitary 2 has the same amount of lift, but there's more knife down in the pocket, so, you know, it affects it differently. But that's how they both look in the pocket together. And that's one of your major differences, is where this lanyard tube and where the screws are set for your pocket clip. And it makes a pretty big difference in the two knives. However, it can be offset with a waterfall style clip that you can pick up on eBay or at mxggear.com, lots of different places. And other than that, friends and neighbors, the reason that in my opinion, the reason that the Para 3 exists is to make those people happy that had to have the less than 3-inch blade, because the blade is 2.9 inches, where the blade on the Para 2, Paramilitary 2, is 3.5 inches, slightly under actually, but that seems to be, in my mind, the only driving factor for the Para 3. Now, if you are in a place where you have laws that keep you from carrying the Paramilitary 2 because the blade length is too long, first, talk to your legislators, talk to your city councils, talk to whomever has that ordinance, and find yourself a group of people and get that fixed, because it's just silly. And while you're getting that fixed, if you want a Paramilitary, get you a Para 3, pick you up one of these little clips or something like it, and you're set. It is a great knife, a well-built knife. It's, like I said, internally, all the parts, it seems to be a Paramilitary 2 that has been redesigned to fit in a 3-inch blade knife. Now, we do have some issues that we should probably look at. Just like with the military, the Paramilitary 2, and some other Spydercos, but these are the worst offenders. We have a lot of extra handle for the blade. You know, it's evident whenever we look at the Paramilitary 2, because you end up with a lot of extra handle sticking out. It's even more evident if we get the military out, have a whole lot of extra handle, and you got nearly a ½ inch of extra handle past the tip of the blade. But the Para 3 also does this, and we're maybe not quite a ½ inch, but we've got a lot of extra handle down there. But the other hand, whenever we get to ergonomics, the extra bit of handle actually pays off. And ergonomics is another place where this is a win and a lose for Spyderco, in my opinion. The win here is Spyderco chamfered the edges of this G10 better than they did on the Paramilitary 2. And it really feels nice in the hand. The lose is this big old long pocket clip, as I talked about in the full review, either gets me right here or right here, depending on how I got my hand on the knife, and I don't like it. It actually does create an annoying hot spot for me. I've got medium large hands. You can see my hands there across the knife, and I don't like it. Paramilitary 2, because it has a longer handle, because the knife clip is further back on the knife, doesn't create those hot spots. And that's going to be hand dependent, of course. But I wish that the Para 2 had that chamfering on the edges of this G10. If it did, it would make a good knife, very good knife, a great knife. Just that little bit of extra chamfering makes such a big difference with the Para 3. Now, once again, and I'm not shilling for MXG gear here, but that just happens to be the clip I have. But you put this clip on this Para 3, and all of those problems disappear. It's just a thing. It's a shorter clip, stays down a little closer to the knife, and it fixes the problems. And action-wise, these knives, the two that I have, are great. You got your classic paramilitary action. It opens and closes just like it should. It's always, of course, a little less intuitive in the left hand. You can teach yourself to do it, and there's lots of different ways to do it. That's the way I do it with the left hands. I just let it fall down against my index finger right here, and then go ahead and close it. But it's always better in the right hand, where the knife will just close itself whenever you take the tension off the lock. And that is the reason that I say that it's not the greatest for left-handers. And, I know some left-handers will possibly argue with me. And some of you think I'm left-handed, which I'm not. I'm this thing called cross-dominance, which basically means I'm confused and I use both hands and neither one of them super efficiently. So, not like ambidextrous, where either hand can do anything, and not like a lefty or a righty, where they're really, really good with one hand or the other. I'm in that confused spot in the middle where I'm good enough with both hands. So that's why I'm always picking on the ambidextrous thing. Whenever a knife comes up like the Paramilitary 2, which I love the Paramilitary 2, but it's just not the greatest for somebody that uses both hands. And it's definitely not the greatest for a lefty either. And that kind of bothers me. But anyhow, guys, these two knives, my real opinion on them, you may have heard a little bit of it in the Para 3 review, is I have a Paramilitary 2. It's the Paramilitary 2 that I wanted. I waited for it, waited till they came available, got the black blade and the black G10 S30V, and I'm going to keep it. There's nothing about the Para 3 where I live that would make me want to keep the Para 3 and carry it. It sticks too far out of the pocket. It's a smaller knife in blade length, but not really smaller in any other dimension that counts because of the way it sticks out of the pocket. So the Para 3 just doesn't have a home with me. Now, it may have a home with you. You may be in one of those places where you need to carry one of these until you can get the laws changed. And that is a beautiful thing, to be able to carry a nice hard-use knife and still be legal. I do think you should be on to your legislators and getting that ordinance fixed or that law fixed. But if you don't have those restrictions, there are better small knives. And whenever I say a better small knife, I mean, if you're going to carry a hard-use knife, you might as well get the original and get the Paramilitary 2. And if you're going to carry a small knife and you want a Spyderco, they make these Delicas, and they're not as hard use, but if you get them in ZDP 189 or HAP 40 or something like that, oh, they are a beautiful little knife. And that's the kind of knife I would carry if I needed a smaller knife. But I don't live under any serious restrictions, so my opinion may not be yours. And I really appreciate you guys stopping by and hanging out with me, talking about Spyderco's Paramilitary series, and that's what I'm going to call it. I know they say this thing is a Para 3, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the Paramilitary series, And while we've got them here, and before the Para 3 disappears to one of you guys that may want it, let's get the entire military series out here and get a look at them. We have the Big Daddy, the Spyderco Military, the Paramilitary 2, and the Para 3. All great knives from Spyderco. Just kind of depends on what you want and what the laws are where you're at. Anyhow, guys, I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with me for a little bit and getting a look at these two wonderful knives from Spyderco. They are some of the best you're going to get for a hard-use knife that's got a great mechanism and is easy to use with a really great blade design. So, anyhow, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.